leasing is not regulated by us. It's a private contractual process between you, the landowner, and an oil and gas company. So that's something that has to occur before we ever get involved in the process. As a reference in your handouts, you have the sites to our website. On our website, even though we don't regulate leasing, we talk a lot about it, we get a lot of questions about it, so we have two specific areas on there. One is frequently asked questions about leasing, and there's questions, and then when you click on the question, the answer will expand below there. Secondly, there's a whole 2 or 3 pages that is entitled About Leasing to help you understand the process a little more. Ultimately, we would be glad to answer questions on that, but we would refer you to an oil and gas knowledgeable attorney because it is a contractual agreement. Moving on then, once a lease is executed, an application for permit is submitted, the applicant has to be registered by the state of Ohio. There's bonding and insurance requirements that they have to have in place before they submit an application for permit. Once that occurs, there's several processes, several reviews we do, and I'm going to highlight the more important ones, I guess. We do a pre-site review in urbanized areas, and for instance, Plain Township is an urbanized area. The law defines an urbanized area as either a municipality within the city limits or an unincorporated civil township greater than 5,000 people, which Plain Township is. So in all those areas, if we receive an application for permit, we would send that information out to our inspector, in this case Dave, and he would do a pre-site review. It's looking over 20 or 30 different things, and he would then submit that to us, which would be part of a permit condition. And I want to briefly mention permit conditions because the law gives us the authority to create permit terms and conditions for every permit we issue. I probably have 50 to 100 different permit conditions depending on the geology and the geography of an area. Next, we would review the casing program. And we had a PowerPoint which we weren't able to get together. I could have shown you a picture, but I think in your handout it might show a casing diagram. And what that handout would show you is there's two different types of casing that is placed in a well. The first type is the surface casing. Surface casing is a review. Well, we review every application we receive for the deepest fresh water in an area, and we require a minimum of 50 feet of surface steel casing be set below that deepest fresh water in an area. So the well is started, they start to drill the well, they get 50 feet below the fresh water, they stop, they put steel casing in the well. There's a calculated volume of cement that actually goes inside the casing, hits the bottom of the hole, and comes back up on the outside. Well, that's a priority inspection, which you'll probably hear more than once tonight. Dave Claus would be out on that, and he would make sure that they're running the surface casing and that the cement job comes back to surface. There's also a production casing, which is used after the well's drilled to total depth, and it's also cemented in over the producing formation several hundred feet. Next, I want to briefly mention spacing. The state has spacing according to depth. There's 4 categories, and there's acreage and distance requirements. And I'm only going to mention the one in Stark County right now, because most of the wells drilled in Stark County are deeper than 4,000 feet, which requires a minimum of 40 acres and at least 500 feet to any piece of property, not in the unit. Now, there can be multiple pieces of property in a unit if your lease allows something called unitization. So, for instance, if I own 20 acres and Tom owns 20 acres, and we both signed leases, that company could unitize our acreage together to make a 40-acre unit, and then we would split the royalties. And we've seen units with up to 60 different landowners in it, to ones that only have one landowner. So we check, based on the geology and proposed formation, we make sure that the spacing, the distances are correct. That is the spacing is presented to us on the registered surveyor's plat by a registered surveyor of the state of Ohio, and we receive that and review that. Finally, the other comment I'll make right now is they also have to submit a restoration plan which describes the process of restoring the site once the well is drilled.